Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Freshen Up Energy. Listen, y'all know I'm a busy guy, and sometimes I need a bit of a boost, which is why I turn to Freshen Up Energy. With 100 milligrams of caffeine derived from coffee beans, vitamins B, C, and D, and zero sugar, Freshen Up has become my new go-to for getting things done. But hey, if you're new and want to try it yourself before getting a 30-serving tub, get yourself the 4-star tube set with flavors such as Blue Raspberry, Cherry Blossom, War Cherry, and Freedom Berry to see which one you like the most. With 15 flavors now and more on the way, I'm sure you'll find the one you love soon. And don't forget to use promo code PLUMES10 at checkout to save 10% your order. And hey, if we get enough out there, maybe we'll even see a Plumes-themed flavor in the near future. Thinking something like Over the Moon for the name. But that promo code again is PLUMES10, and thank you to Freshen Up Energy for helping me bring this show to you. Without further ado, let's begin the episode. Hello everyone and welcome to PlumesCast. My name is Seth, aka PhantasmaPlumes, and I'm coming to you pre-recorded from the Observatorium. As always, I thank you for tuning in today. Now, before I get started in here today, first and foremost, there are two things I want to run through with you real quick. The first being, my voice may sound a little bit different today, and I apologize for that, because today was Community Day in Pikmin Bloom and Pokemon Go, and for those unaware, for Pikmin Bloom, that's you need to go walk 10,000 steps to get a medal. For Pokemon Go, it's usually a Pokemon that spawns at a crazy amount. You catch it as many times as you can. You get the rewards from it. There's usually special missions you can do. So it runs for like a few hours. I think it goes from like 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Or no, 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, your local time. But I was super excited to get out there today. I ended up getting about 10 miles underneath my feet. Hoping next week, if the weather's nice, to get the whole 12 miles. Because, as I was telling you about last week, walking has been a fantastic, de-stressor for me. It is the great equalizer right now for me. I'm able to build my health while lessening the strain on my mental health by taking these, just strolls. And am I playing games for a little bit while I'm out there? Yeah. But being able to stop and take photos of nature and look how things are changing. Like last week, it was completely flooded out. This week, I'm able to walk the whole trail. I'm able, having seen how it's changed over the week, it brings this sense of now, this sense of connectivity that I've never felt with the environment around me before. And again, I've talked about this more in depth on last week's episode, but I genuinely hope some of you out there have taken this opportunity to go outside and enjoy the spring. You know, it's about to kick off. I think Tuesday is the official start of the spring I think Tuesday is the spring equinox. So that's when spring is starting. By all means, I hope some of y'all have gone out there and had some fun, maybe had a picnic. Dude, as I've been scouting these trails, okay, I have been picking out spots for picnic days for the Fox wife and I. Genuinely speaking, the day she gets a day off on the weekend, I'm on that shit. And the worst part is she hasn't had a weekend day off in such a long time, and it's just like, bro, come on. But anyway, the second thing I want to talk with you about is I want y'all to be entirely honest with me. Okay? Unfortunately, we have a new neighbor in the apartment complex. And with that, comes a whole bunch of different noises that, honestly, I cannot tell how well you will be able to hear them until the recording is said and done. I, myself, have taken a couple of steps to soundproof the room. I've made sure to record in a carpeted area. I've got a couple of things hanging up to, dampen the sound a little bit. And if it sounds really bad, I have a couple of options to basically dampen the room even more so. But, and like there's plenty of furniture in here, so there's not like a lot of sound reverb. Honestly, sound engineering has never been my forte, but from what I've been able to do and what people have told me to do, I think I've gotten it pretty down pat. However, we have never had somebody this loud during the entire lifetime of PlumesCast. And what does that mean? That means I have recorded PlumesCast from the comfort of 2 different apartments. Okay? The first one was when I was living off on my own. I had a loft. The possibilities for having, any type of sound interference were very low. Did I get reverb from the wall? Yes. Did I not really soundproof that one very well? I'll admit, yeah, if you go back and listen to older PlumesCast episodes, it doesn't sound as good. Also was using older equipment, so, that might have done something with it too. The second part of that, though, is when we moved into this apartment, like, there was nobody, like, the people beneath us were chill, very quiet. Usually never heard them. Only time we did hear them was when they were outside on the back patio, having a conversation about this, that, and the other. These people have only been here for a couple of days thus far, and they have made their presence well known. I've heard this kid screaming, I've heard him, like, running around, which is weird because we're on the 3rd floor. I didn't think it'd be possible for me to hear somebody, like, banging on the ground when I'm above them. That doesn't make sense to me. Again, sound engineering was never my thing, but that just doesn't make sense. Make it make sense, But anyway, I do not know how loud this kid is going to be. I purposely have started the recording late because as time has gone on, I believe that, and I'm kind of like taking pauses here and there to listen to see if like he's still out and about, but I believe this kid has an 8 o'clock bedtime. That is my hope and prayer right now, but I can't guarantee that. I don't know. This is too new for me. I still hear him beating around. It's like 9:08 at night, but please let me know if you hear him. Please let me know if you hear it in the recording. If so, I will do what I need to do. Whether that be further soundproofing this room, maybe, moving my recording operations into my closet where I have a desk and I could set everything up in there. It'd be a pain in the ass, but it'd be worth it to be able to do PlumesCast for y'all continuously. Or, weirdly enough, my local library actually has a podcast lab. Like, you can go to the library, reserve, a spot for a little while, and record a podcast within their technology room. I don't know how that looks. I don't know how that works. But it's an avenue of which we can explore. Genuinely, please let me know. Now then, now that I've kind of wasted 8 minutes, 8 minutes of podcast talking about everything else, but I wanted to talk to y'all about some books I've been listening to, okay? I talked about this last week, how I was like, you know what? I want to have we're probably going to have an episode talking about these audiobooks I've been listening to. And I've gone through 3 different books, all things, and I assure you, this is not sponsored by any means. But I wanted to talk to you about these 3 books that I've been able to listen to thanks to Spotify's new audiobook service. Look, I'm not going to sit here and shrill Spotify. I think Spotify has done a lot of things wrong. The fact that, artists are hardly paid for their music, yeah, that's a problem. The fact that podcasters hardly get paid, yeah, no, that one swings for the jugular for myself. But anyway, if you have a pro plan, you are able to listen to 15 hours of audiobooks every month. For me, that's great, because I usually only listen to it when I'm driving. And thankfully, traffic hasn't been that bad that I would burn through that. Now, if I was living at my old place, and commuting like an hour into work, oh god, I'd be out of that shit so quick. But 15 hours seems to work for me right now. That said, I have been eyeballing Audible to some degree because they have, pretty good options right now. I think it's 99 cents to start for 3 months, and then it's like $13 a month. Regardless, I'm not trying to sell you on either or. If you yourself are interested in listening to any of these books that I'm about to talk about, please do yourself a favor. Go get yourself a library card. And I know what you're thinking, Seth, who has a library card in 2024? Dude, I'm telling you. I just told you about the podcast lab at my local library, who also has a 3D printer, who also has Macs and desktops that you can fuck around on, that has a bunch of books you can read. It's crazy. Also having classes that you can get certified at for free. Fucking wild. The amount of resources a library has is beyond me. But here's the kicker, okay? My library has access to audiobooks. A lot of libraries who don't require that you live in the area have access to library books. You can go onto Reddit, look up how to get a library card in a couple of different states, okay? Then download the Libby app, Libby. This app will allow you to reserve audiobooks, if they're available, for like 2 weeks. It is fantastic. You can download it straight to your device so you don't have to worry about using mobile data, and you can just listen to it as you go. No, 15-hour restrictions. You do have, you can only check it out for 2 weeks, and then you gotta check it back in. But then if it's still available, you can check it out right then at the end. It's crazy. It's absolutely wild to me. I've been using it to get some ebooks onto my Kindle, which, to be fair, I've also spent a little money on my Kindle here recently, because Amazon points expire. Who fucking knew? The Kindle reading rewards, those expire in a couple of months. It's wild to me. But anyway, it's been a fantastic service for me. It has helped save my fiance and I a good chunk of money. And if you're interested in it, go do it. It's free. Why wouldn't you? But anyway, 10 minutes in, I want to talk to you about 3 books that I've read recently. Or listened to, rather. Crying in H-Mart by Michelle Zauner. Disrupting the Game by Reggie Fils-Aime. And I'm Glad My Mother Died by Jennette McCurdy. Now, I know what you're sitting here thinking, okay? Seth, why? Just why? And look, I've talked about this on podcasts a number of times, but I think reading life stories is one of the best things you can do to improve your own life, even if they're not self-help books. I understand Reggie's book, Disrupting the Game, is absolutely a self-help book in the sense that it would make you better at business. It teaches you how to, negotiate certain business angles, how to be aware of other people's opinions and use them to your own benefit, how to be a great leader. That entire book is all about being the best leader that you can be. And I love Reggie's voice in it. And you know what the cool part is all 3 of these audiobooks are read by the author. That's sick as hell, alright? I don't know about you, but growing up, I watched Reggie when he came up onto Nintendo Directs, and I watched iCarly growing up, which is kind of embarrassing to admit, but, fuck it. I was a preteen. And it was, an interesting show. I never thought, down the line I'd be a content creator myself, akin to the iCarly show, but fuck. But it's so interesting. It's so interesting to listen to the story of people that the side that they show you, and then you get to go behind it and see, everything going on. It's fascinating. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Using other people's life experiences to know their successes, what they did to, achieve those points. A la Reggie, working his way up from just doing Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble was one of his first gigs. Working his way up from Procter & Gamble, to PepsiCo and Pizza Hut, all the way, or maybe Domino's, is one of the pizza places, to go on to Nintendo and work his way up there, learning his successes compared to learning Jennette's failures, where she struggled with, an abusive parent. I can relate to that. I've got 2 of them. But dealing with an abusive parent, dealing with alcoholism, dealing with bulimia, it's crazy to me. And trying to be a perfectionist, too. From those 2 books, I don't know either of these people personally. I really don't. But my fiance made the joke to me the other day. She's like, I love the fact that you call them by their first name, like you know them personally. I'm like, yeah, no, I spent fucking 8+ hours listening to them while I'm driving. They're my best friend now. I'm expecting a call from them later this week, actually. But anyway, the most fascinating part about all of these is there are common themes between all 3. Things of which are vastly different. That if you don't look at the big picture of all 3 books, you may miss. And this is why I'm recommending these books to you. Rather, more than just recommending books to you, I want you to go out and find things that interest you and listen to them. Take more opportunities to learn. Never stop learning. Because you can just gradually grow more and more as a person, having allowed yourself, the vulnerability of listening to someone else's story. When I tell you my stories on podcast, I hope you can take some of my, successes, failures, and everything in between and apply it to yourself and use it as leverage to move yourself forward. I will say this, okay, before I go into the common themes, I will say this. So, as somebody who has unfortunately lost parents, who have lost both of my parents, I will add, as most of you know, okay, there have been countless opportunities where I sit there and I question what the fuck is going on and what I'm doing. Because sometimes I sit there and I'm like, is this a smart play? Should I invest this money into the stock market? Should I, save this money and keep it for a house? Like, is it smart to live on my own? Should I try and get a house and, have people move in with me? My fiance is now part of the picture. What should I do to better prepare for a wedding? Like, how do I plan this? Who do I talk to? That's just a microcosm of some of the thoughts that go through my head. And I don't necessarily have a reference to go and talk to. I don't have an adult figure which I could go sit down and be like, hey, I am confused by A, B, and C. What would you do about it? Can I just say that listening through some of these stories, listening through, how Michelle and Jennette got through grief, and hearing how their stories resonate with my own, and what paths they took comparatively to what I did, it gives you a sense of reassurance. It gives you a sense of, again, as I've said on the podcast countless times, it doesn't matter what you were going through in life, somebody else has gone through it, and they are still around to tell the story. You are not alone, despite how alone you may feel. And it gives you strength in that. I'm not going to lie to you. Listening to these books has given me so much confidence that what I'm doing is the right thing. Even if I'm scared at times. Like, the fact that I'm so damn excited to marry my fiance. Despite everything that might happen between here and now, I know for a fact we're going to have a fantastic wedding. I know for a fact the steps that we're taking together now are the right steps. And we'll have a great time. The job, figuring out, hey, should I stay at my current job? Should I, be moving like some of the other people in my industry every few years? dude, the fact that I'm still loving it, despite some bullshit, is a blessing. And the opportunity to learn sometimes is the smarter option instead of reaching for more cash. Because you know what? The more you learn in a location and the more, tenure you have, the better you look to somebody else. It's kind of crazy. But look, in talking about all three books, there are three common themes across all three of them that I want to share with you. All right? The first one I've already kind of touched on, and that's loss and identity. Like, all three of these books explore loss in some kind of way. Jennette deals with the death of her controlling mother. That's the entire book. Reggie tackles the loss of innocence as he's talking about, when his family passed on. And when he had to make certain choices to basically, whether or not he gives up his, whether or not to give up his family, or like the time he spends with his kids. He actually had a divorce, which was fucking wild to me. I would never expect that from Reggie. But using that as leverage to then be a better father and do things for his kids down the line. Like, despite things with his original marriage not working out, to then go on and have a successful career of which his kids can be proud of, and then come back around and teach at the school his kids are at, or give lectures at the school where his kids are at. That's cool as hell. Like, he didn't let that destroy him. And he allowed the loss of what was a pretty strong family unit be the breaking point to then rebuild himself into being the Reginator as we know him. And Michelle grapples with the grief that, basically of her mother passing. Each of these authors use loss as a catalyst for self-discovery and just defining their own identity. And look, I can say this as somebody who's gone through the same thing. All right? When my mom died, I had no one else that I had to worry about. For the first time in over 24 years. Maybe 25. I don't know. But in the first time in years, despite having to get through all my mom's bullshit one last time, I felt like I was free. I felt like I was moving on up in the world. I was able to, focus on the things I want to do. And you know what I found? Is I had given out so much of myself at that point that I didn't know what happiness was. Really. I didn't know what would make me happy. I didn't know what my goals should be. I didn't have much of anything in mind of that. I had a couple of lofty goals, sure. And I am so incredibly thankful I had the magnificent woman I have as my fiance now to back me up during all this. But she and all the experiences I've gone up to in this point have been the turning point in my life. Where I was able to say, you know what? Fuck it, here we go. It's time to be myself. And be proud of myself. And be proud of where I came from. I never used my past as much of a crutch growing up. However, I was sure as hell about to use that as a springboard. And whenever I start beating myself up, there's always a voice in the back of my head that is getting stronger every time I beat myself up, because I still struggle with it, I'll be real with you, but every time I beat myself up, there's a voice in the back of my head that said, this is not the worst shit you've ever dealt with. I've been dealt some bad hands, the fiancé has been dealt some bad hands, the company has been dealt some bad hands, but at every point, it's not total dread, it's not total despair, it's not, I'm about to give up. It's this isn't the worst thing I've experienced yet. Here we fucking go. We're about to add one more notch to the belt. Let's go. Now, that said, all three of these books have talked in depth about family dynamics. Now, mind you, it's all kind of explored in different ways. You know, Reggie, I don't know why I wanted to call him Fils-Aime, but Reggie sheds light on like family expectations and cultural pressures. Michelle goes through the complexities of being a Korean in America, or part Korean, trying to, you know, first try to be white, and then, you know, being proud of her Korean side, and then, you know, the kind of back and forth on that, to the point where, you know, she wrestles with her own identity, where she's like, look, you know, at first I was scared of, you know, being seen as somebody different by the rest of the world. But now here I am in like Korea for a part of the book. You know, here I am in Korea, and I'm not passing enough as Korean to a culture that should have been home to me. And then lastly, you know, talking about Jennette again. She goes through the entire book is about toxicity between a mother-daughter relationship in which her mom forced everything onto her. Like, when you go through and listen to this book or read this book, it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. Please go use Libby for it, or go to the library. You won't regret it. But anyway, when you go through this book and you hear all the bullshit that Jennette's mom did to her, so that way her mom could live the star life through her daughter, it's fucking wild to me. Absolutely fucking wild to me. You know, and like, when you see this kid actor on the screen, to go back through, like I did, after I finished the book, I watched some old iCarly clips. And just to see this actress who was struggling with so much behind the screen, doing this fake smile and everything else, it puts so much in context. And, you know, there was somebody that the Fox wife and I were watching the other day. I think it was Quentin Reviews. He was going through the downfall of Sam and Cat. And, like, every time I saw Jennette on the screen, I heard her voice in the back of my head just being like, yeah, no, I was tired of this shit. They fucked me over too many times. By the end of the season, I just wanted to quit. And then they canceled the show, and it's just like, ooh. Whew. But the most important thing, alright, like the biggest theme across all three books, is finding your voice. Like, each author used this book, or their book rather, as a platform to share their own unique story. It's wild to me. It's wild to me how somebody who suffered so much like Jennette could use dark humor to, you know, expose a pretty fucked up past. Reggie goes through and champions diversity within the gaming industry. And Michelle finds solace in music and Korean culture. Every author used writing to essentially get their story out there, to find themselves within the pages. Like, that's the thing I want to reach for. You know, that's the thing I want the podcast to feel like. That's the thing where if I eventually write a book, that's what I want to shoot for. Where it's not, you know, hey, this is, you know, Seth, and I'm telling you how to be a cool guy. Number 1, stop being a little bitch. You know, I don't ever want to be talking to you. I want to be talking with you. When I read all 3 of those books, or rather listened to them, it didn't sound like they were talking down to me. That they were just being arrogant to, you know, be like, oh yeah, no, I'm a successful child actor. I'm a successful, you know, Nintendo rep. Oh, I had a music industry. Like, I did not know. I genuinely did not know about Michelle Zauner before reading the book. It was just something that the Fox wife had picked up one day and I was always interested in, and I found it on Spotify. I'm like, oh, alright. But all of them made it sound, and well, rather, they wrote it as if they were sitting in the car with me, telling me their story. It was a fantastic time, and genuinely, I hope that's the voice and power that the podcast has on you. That you yourself don't feel as though I'm talking down to you. That you don't think I'm trying to be holier than thou at any point. I want you to know, every time you listen to a PlumesCast episode, it's not coming from like a place of, superiority to, someone learning. It's on one-on-one. It's a one-on-one level. Even though I don't know you, I unfortunately don't have the pleasure of knowing you yet. I want you to always feel like you can reach out and ask questions and have conversations with me. Like, dude, that's why I do this shit to some degree, because I want to encourage you to reach out of your comfort zone, out of your insecurities, and just, if you need help, ask. Because that's the first starting point to actually, being better. Admitting at times that you need help. It's not a weakness. It's not a fault. You can do amazing things by taking the life stories of countless people, like I'm doing here. And, talking about my life stories, the things I've learned going through life. Like, I never want to be at that, life coach guru level where I just talk to you like, oh yes, if you spend $5,000 on my course, I will be able to... No, fuck that. Look, I hope that when you hear my voice, when you hear my stories, it gives you a place of not only solace, but strength. Understand that when you come into my community of things, when you listen to, the podcast and you have conversations with me and you have conversations with others about, PlumesCast and everything else, we're trying to build a safe spot for you to be you and to express yourself as you need to. And like, genuinely, I hope we hit that goal every time I do a podcast. And if I'm not, hey, let me know. I'm always down to learn something new. That's why I went out and listened to these books. And like, seriously, I would be so down to talk about each of the books individually, which again, I'm Glad My Mother Died by Jennette McCurdy, Disrupting the Game by Reggie Fils-Aime, and Crying in H-Mart by Michelle Zauner. I would be more than happy to go into each of these books and any other books I would listen to in the future, if that's what y'all want. If you want my perspective on it and how they handled it and go into like some of the plot analysis, dude, let's do it. Hell, I'd start doing YouTube, and be like, hey, we're going to talk about, Crying in H-Mart. Here's my, 60-second thought. Anyway, bye. I would do that for y'all. If that's what you want. And we'll analyze it together and we'll talk about it together. We'll have a good time together. But I hope, in talking about all this, in the strength of which I've, carried this conversation today, I hope this motivates you to go out and find resources about things that maybe you haven't considered. Listen to other people's stories outside of my own. Outside of, famous actors. Find, solace in other people. Listen to their stories and give yourself a bit of a break. And realize that, hey, maybe you are making the right step down the way and you didn't know it yet. Maybe you're not. There's always an opportunity to change the path you're going on. And I hope, this episode of PlumesCast gives you some drive to go pick up a book and read. Because, dude, I've talked about it before. I would love to have Plumesy's book club. Maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter. just talk about the books that we've been reading, I think that shit would be cool as hell. You know, it's down the line. It's something we can talk about more and more if that's something you're interested in. But all that to say, I hope you go out today. If you're taking a Springfield walk, hey, maybe you're out walking and you're listening to PlumesCast. I want you to take a breath. I want you to breathe and just ask yourself, if I were to describe my life as if I was writing one of these books, what would I say? All right, in one sentence. And then when you come up with that sentence, I want you to think about it. I want you to figure out how you feel about it. Is it something you're proud of? Is it something that you can grow from? For example, if your sentence is, well, I'm struggling with money, with job stress, with, everything else, but I've got a good group of friends behind me. That's your life sentence in one period. You know immediately where you need to work on. And you know where to hopefully find some answers. There's books out there about dealing with stress. There's a PlumesCast out there about dealing with stress. There's, financial books out there. Granted, please take those with a grain of salt. Some of them are trying to sell you on a course. Take time. Be able to evaluate sources. Be able to look at a book, try and figure out why the author wrote the book. All right? For example, me, Jennette, Reggie, Michelle, we tell our stories so that way people around us can grow from our mistakes, can celebrate our successes, can root for us, in hopes that you can find solace in all of our bullshit and realize that it ain't game over yet. Meanwhile, you have other people who I won't name, maybe start with a Dave, who sell a program, who tell you, hey, if you subscribe into, this book club, I'll teach you how to save money. I'll teach you to be a millionaire. Or there's some people like a Robert who talk about, using debt as a means to accumulate wealth. And if you go through and read this, book that he wrote a long time ago, well, it will change your life. And that's what he's known for. But he keeps coming up in books or in conversations where he shouldn't probably be. Analyze why the author wrote the book. If it sounds like a good reason, they want to share their life story, it's probably a good read. And be okay with putting books down and saying, you know what, didn't vibe with me. Maybe you don't like my voice. Maybe you don't like their voice. Maybe you don't like the way they describe things. It's okay. I'm not telling you to go out and just absorb information. Find things that resonate with you. Find things that sound about right with you. If the author is talking to you to a way that you don't like, fuck them. And then find the next one. But anyway, I've got to let y'all go. Unfortunately, I hate to leave y'all now because I feel like we've got really good momentum, but I want you to take this momentum that we have here and find a book. Find something that you can either lose yourself in and escape reality for a little bit. Something that brings you joy, something that brings you laughter, something that gives you solace from the craziness of the world. Or find something out there that resonates with you. There's a couple of books on time management that I want to read through. There's a couple of, fiction books I want to read through. I've got a whole catalog of books that I really want to go through and kind of work through, give myself a break, give myself some time to learn, so on and so forth. And I want to know what those books are. I hope you'll tell me them. And when you're done with them, give me a book review. I think that'd be neat. But anyway, you've got a whole literary world in front of you. And it doesn't have to be a book, it can be a video, it can be a song, it can be anything else. Just listen to somebody else's story today. And give yourself a bit of a break on your own. Because guess what? You're still writing it right now. But anyway, remember, you can find me in the night skies across different platforms. You've got PhantasmaPlumes on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. You can listen to PlumesCast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube in the form of pods. And you can email the show directly by sending it to PlumesCast@gmail.com. That email address again is PlumesCast, PLUMESCAST @gmail.com. Or if the podcast isn't enough plumes for you, find more topics such as technology and book reviews over at phantasmagoriaofplumes.blogspot.com. That URL one more time, phantasmagoriaofplumes.blogspot.com. Guys, thank you all so much for listening in, and as always, I'll talk to you again from the stars very soon. Till next time, everyone. Until next time, everyone. Go pick up a book. I don't have a good outro. Bye-bye!